Hi all and welcome to a new video. Today we dive into a world of miniature agnostic games. These games exist as a set of rules only, and in doing so are usually made by passionate people who don't have the funding or necessarily even the tools available to them to make or mass produce models for the game. Sometimes the creators can make models, but choose to push the game into being agnostic for the benefit of the community, and that is also worth highlighting. As such, this list is in no particular order to pretty much anything, out of respect for the time each creator has put into them. Before we go in, let's delve into what exactly is a miniature agnostic game. On its baseline, a miniature agnostic game is a game that can technically work with any minis. This can be papercraft, little tokens from Etsy, something from a board game you have on hand, anything. Wargames Atlantic, Victrix, and Perry Miniatures are all great sources of agnostic minis that give you tools and something to work with for a bit cheaper than some of the bigger names. Individual companies will also sell minis you might want to use, but in agnostic games allows you to pick and choose your own budget. Now, why should you play a miniature agnostic game? The biggest draw is the creativity. If you play 40k, models have to be easily identifiable as something. If you play Space Weirdos, you can make something that is yours, and only yours. If you are of a more creative mind and don't like the rigidness of painting models a certain way and building them a certain way, then these systems are for you. If you have an old collection collecting dust and want fresh new rules, these games may also just be for you, as many of these are built with having an old collection of minis you don't use anymore in mind. First up on our list of miniature games is the Rampant Series. All made by a single group, Dragon Rampant, Lion Rampant, and Xenos Rampant all fit different niches. Lion Rampant 2nd Edition is the most recent of these rules, but Xenos and Dragon Rampant are still absolutely amazing. Lion Rampant fits into the medieval wargaming, Dragon into fantasy, and Xenos into your sci-fi. All aim to capture a rule system complex enough to allow for anything from a skirmish to even a larger scale battle, but also simple enough to just run in a handful of hours that you would have available to you. It also lets you use historical minis, Warhammer Fantasy minis, any type of fantasy minis, really, whether it be Kings of War over at Mantic, just together in a big blob. So if you want to build a specific army that you have in mind, well, then this might be something you want to check out. Next up is Oathmark. Oathmark is a 25mm scale wargame that is miniature agnostic, but does have its own line of minis as well. Despite this, it heavily encourages using the minis you want to represent your forces. The system is an alternative activation fantasy battle game that uses D10s, and uses a system that allows for mixed species armies. So if you have ever wanted to field Dwarven heavy infantry, Elf heavy cavalry, and Goblin wolf riders together in an own army, then this is a gem for you. It has a very in-depth campaign system, a lot of really good magic rules, and in general is a very well balanced, made by one man rule system. Next up is Space Station Zero. Space Station Zero is a squad-based, almost TTRPG-inspired game that uses an even-odd system based around D12s. The system is built for solo and co-op play and plays a lot like a dungeon crawl through space. The system is focused on continuous scenarios that force you to play safely and adjust as you get to the end. Honestly, reading through the rules, it reminds me a lot of a roguelike. If this interests you, this might be a system for you. Next up is Deth Wizards, which is a very solid rule set where you play as a Deth Wizard. The rule set allows you to play the necromantic wizard of your dreams, with this rule set specialized in providing a feel of power for everything from ghosts to skeletons. The game can be played as solo, co-op, or versus, and as the newest game of Snarling Badger, who also made Space Station Zero, it benefits a lot from hindsight and is a more solid and, in my opinion, better written game than their previous endeavors. And that is not to say their previous endeavors are bad. I really like Space Station Zero's rules, but you can tell that they took the lessons from Space Station Zero and made it better with what they give you with Deth Wizard, and I like seeing that improvement along with the company. I'm really excited to whatever they end up coming out with next. Next up is Turnip 28. It is a post-apocalyptic Napoleonic horror-themed wargame. It is built around officers and peasants with units like chaff, bastards, etc. The rule set allows for smaller units, roughly 20 to 40 models a side, that are encouraged to be kitbashed to fit the unique aesthetic of the game. When playing, things can happen like a unit refusing orders, fitting into the themes of units being horrible rundown people in a post-apocalyptic Napoleonic setting. Next up, continuing on the horror-inspired area, we have Forbidden Psalm. A game set in the Mork Borg universe, Forbidden Psalm is a very popular skirmish game. It provides solo, co-op, and versus modes of play. It plays like a minimalist TTRPG. You have 4 stats and a squad of 5 minis, roll a d20 to see if you hit, etc. This is a fantastic rule set that encourages horror-themed kit bashes, but can also very easily be played with existing minis or stand-ins. It has multiple different themed settings as well. Last War is World Wars, Dread Knights is Medieval, and Kill Sample Process is Cyberpunk, taking this same base rule set but turning it into a completely different and unique game. Next up is Nuts World War II. An amazingly fun World War II skirmish game, Nuts World War II is a miniature agnostic game that can be played with anything from plastic army men to fully assembled and painted kits. The game focuses heavily on the individual ranged engagements between soldiers and squads, and the solo play mechanics are very thought out and intuitive, but they also have co-op and versus as well, which are also very well thought out and intuitive. This is a very good rule set for all the minis and different things you can collect on World War II related items. Next up, it would be foolish of me to not mention them, are one-page rules. One-page rules is an amazing alternative 40k, which is pretty much Games Workshop alternative rule set, and a great choice for anyone who enjoys larger scale battles. For the 40k side, it gives a feel of 40k with the larger armies, but the benefit of a community of gamers that can make a better, more streamlined and balanced rule set without compromising the profit of a corporation. Games Workshop should pay more attention to this. They have options for fantasy, as well as other systems, like smaller skirmish-based game modes, but I truly do feel that this is the strongest offering they have, which is the larger scale items, specifically the larger scale 40k item, which is way better. Grimdark Future is amazing. Next up, we have Nercopolis 28, made by the creators behind Turnip 28. Nercopolis 28 is another solid rule set, but this time based on necromancy. Nercopolis 28 gives you a good rule set for small warbands of undead, and it also requires a very small space to play, only on a 16x16 board. Due to the small scale and the abundance of undead minis, it can be an easy entry point to miniature agnostic games and kit bashing. Next up is another mention I have previously mentioned, which is Gaslands Refueled. Do you like racing, Hot Wheels, and Mad Max? Then Gaslands is an amazing and simple game. The cost to entry is a $20 book and a few Hot Wheels for $10. Terrain can be anything from cardboard boxes to paper towel rolls. It is just encouraged to start simple. So if you want a racing space skirmish game, go for it. Try it now. Gaslands is amazing, and I have mentioned it before, and I still love it. Next up, we have Nuclear Renaissance. Nuclear Renaissance is a game of combat cars set in a nuclear renaissance. If you want a larger scale Gaslands and enjoy the Mad Max aesthetic, this game is for you. Despite being a game of combat cars, we have on-foot and car rules, allowing for a large amount of options and fun scenarios, as well as just being a very solid rule set that you can access for free. It is both complex yet simple. Games take less than an hour to play. Up to 4 people can play, which would take probably like 2 to 3 hours, but still, if you have a group of people who enjoy making weird scratch bashes, or an orc player who has nothing better to do with his time and has made 80 scratch bashes already, this is an amazing game for you to try out. Next up is Mordheim. Mordheim is a game abandoned by Games Workshop but maintained by a loving community on the internet. The game is now agnostic, as the rule set has been updated and managed by the community. It is a campaign game primarily set in the city of Mordheim, heralded as one of the best rule systems Games Workshop has ever made. The community has taken this system, improved it even more with a large wealth of free online resources. As for how the game plays itself, it plays like a masterful mix between a tabletop RPG and an actual miniature wargame. And because of that, it has gotten a loving fan base that has continued to support it, as previously stated. Next up is Space Weirdos, a fun, simple space skirmish game, a skirmish heartbreaker, if you will. Space Weirdos thrives in a short, less than 20-page, yet punchy rule set. This was written with the intent to get anything on the table that you have on a shelf that fits in a space sci-fi setting. It uses a lot of dice sizes, from D6s to D12s, letting you actually use your Dice Goblin collection. Yes, I know you have one. The dice gave the game a lot of depth, allowing for more skilled units to actually feel skilled while also being balanced among each other. And as a 1-2 punch, we have Sword Weirdos, another skirmish heartbreaker. A fantasy rule set from the creators of Space Weirdos. It has an even shorter page number, at less than 10 pages, and is meant to be fast-paced and bloody. with a super easy to learn rule set that is once again meant to be used with any fantasy models you have lying around, leads to a very fun game that takes under an hour to play and learn the first time. Next up is Brutality. Brutality is an agnostic skirmish wargame that is a D10 system and has free rules. It lives up to its name. It is a brutal, fast-paced sci-fi skirmish wargame. The rules allow for fast building and play like many agnostic games, but is focused on making combat fun while playing fast. It also lends itself easily to a lot of different settings, and is easily usable for any idea you have. And the book itself lets you know that. If you want a nice fun rule set for a whole bunch of orcs punching each other on a death planet, for some World War II setting in a trench warfare thing or anything, well then this works for it. Although World War II trench warfare is probably going to be beat out soon by different games, but you have choices now. Next up is Pulp Alley. Pulp Alley is a game that plays as a fast-paced action-adventure series. The game is built around the idea of a series. You are a director directing combat and actions within, and when control passes from you, you pass it to another director. If you want to have a rule set that gives you a feeling of a fun action series, then this is for you. The rules are free, and there are physical products that help complement this rule set that are shown on the right. And we have Verrotwood. Verrotwood is a game that focuses on a cult that you create. Each cult is 4 models and is encouraged to be kit-bashed and made your own. The game plays in a chaotically fun way, with each mini randomly activated as combat is random. This, combined with a low model count, leads to fast and memorable games. It is built around a campaign system as the recommended way to play, and has multiple rules for improving your cult as you get attached to them. Hopefully you don't end up losing any members along the way. And now we are at the end of this short video. I wanted it to be longer. However, without having the time to actually playtest every single one of these agnostic games, even with the delay and watching battle reports, so instead I chose to highlight them and show the one thing that they try to do best, and hope that that is enough to get you to look at them and be interested in them. The people who have made them deserve all the praise they could ever get, and I have missed some games, and this is a series that will never be complete. There will always be games I miss. A lot of repeat companies and people came up. A lot of them are, by the way, linked in the comments below, and they make other games as well you should look at. I hope you found something interesting and stick around for the future of the channel. Thank you to all the creators of miniature agnostic games out there. If anybody stumbled across this because a keyword popped up, have a wonderful week, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next weekend.